लिए मैंने ये कर ही लिया रोटेट इन सच, और मैंने याद रखा कि मुझे अब लेफ्ट ही चेक करना है, तो उस बेसिस पे मैंने फाइनली आई सॉल्व दैट।
पहले तुम्हें राइट देखना है, लेफ्ट
हाँ, तो मैंने जो लेफ्ट वाले से कंपेयर किया, फाइनली आई डिड इट। तो मैंने सारे बाइनरी के कर लिए। अब कल हीप कंप्लीट कर लेंगे।
हीप ना?
हाँ
कल हीप तो हो जाएगा। हीप में ज्यादा क्वेश्चंस है भी नहीं, और थोड़े से
हाँ,
यूनिक क्वेश्चन है हीप के।
थोड़ा डिफरेंट पैटर्न है, वो मेरे 200 हो जाएंगे कल फिर।
बढ़िया
200 माइलस्टोन। ठीक है, एक सेकंड देना मुझे।
ठीक। मैंने सोचा कर ही ले रहे हैं आज, क्योंकि
मैं पढ़ तो लेती हूँ, बट मुझसे कोई पूछ ले। नमस्ते।
पूछेंगे ना, क्यों नहीं पूछेंगे। अच्छी कंपनी के इंटरव्यूज में तो पूछते ही हैं।
स्टार्ट कर लेते हैं। कौन सा फेमस है बताओ, अकॉर्डिंग टू योर एक्सपीरियंस।
मेरे को ये लग रहा है न्यूज, अरे वीडियो स्ट्रीमिंग।
कौन सा?
वो वीडियो स्ट्रीमिंग नेटफ्लिक्स वाला।
नेटफ्लिक्स
हाँ,
वीडियो स्ट्रीमिंग। तुमसे जब पूछा गया था।
इस वजह से मुझे लग रहा है इंटरेस्टिंग, लेकिन बहुत लंबा है।
तुम्हारा इंटरनेट गड़बड़।
क्या हुआ?
लंबा तो है, लंबे सारी हैं। तुम्हारा इंटरनेट गड़बड़ कर रहा है।
एक मिनट ना, मैं
Hello everyone, welcome back to another
सुनाई दे रही है वॉइस?
interesting HLD, which is video streaming. In this, we are going to talk about YouTube and Netflix both. So welcome back again to one of the interesting episode of Namaste Front End System Design. Okay, so in this video, what we are going to do, I am going to tell you, so we are going to dive into multiple things related to streaming. So I am going to help you to understand many terminologies which are related to the streaming. What are the areas that you should think about whenever we talk about any of these streaming platforms, right? All of these, we are going to get into a lot of those detail. And on the same time, I am also going to give you a lot of references where you can go and get your more deeper understanding around the streaming platforms, right? Starting from the front-end system design to the back-end system design resources as well. So this video is something going to be helpful for everyone. So people who are early in the stage, maybe they can take the high-level view and go through the entire video. This is going to help. People who are senior, definitely this is a video which is for you. Although there are questions where people say that, hey, this is very precise and specific HLD, where if you have not worked on, say, suppose a streaming platform, then it becomes difficult for you to basically crack or basically talk about that. Don't worry. So we are going to dive into from very zero to a hero kind of a scenario in terms of the video streaming. Okay, so with that, without wasting further time, let's get started. So we'll try to break the same thing. So whenever it talks about a video streaming, right, you have already using YouTube, you are already using Netflix, I hope. So we are going to break this into two things and we'll see where it goes. So the first thing first, which is functional requirement. So what do we want ultimately? And second is non-functional requirements. Perfect. So when we talk about functional requirement, let's try.
पता है, और जैसे ये बता रहा है ना, जिस वे में एचएलडी फ्रंट एंड के लिए बता रहा है, बैक एंड के लिए भी ऐसा ही होता है। पहले फंक्शनल रिक्वायरमेंट बताते हैं, नॉन फंक्शनल रिक्वायरमेंट, देन एपीआई डिजाइन या स्कीमा डिजाइन, देन एपीआई डिजाइन, एंड देन
इंटरव्यूज में देखे ऐसे बताते हैं।
हाँ, ऐसे ही बताते हैं। वो हेलो इंटरव्यू करके वेबसाइट ना, उसमें तो इसमें होता है कि 5 पैटर्न में हमेशा आंसर देना चाहिए। तो वो इसमें बता दो।
Get into the platform and try to see what could be the major possibilities that we wanted to dive. Now, I have already talked about these things in multiple HLDs, where try to start with a high level thing. Like in this example, probably I will say you have one part where you have a you can say the browse feature where you can get all the videos, where you can search, get into the particular video and whatnot, the gallery part of it, right? The other side of it basically, which contains, you can actually go and play any of the videos. Like you wanted to watch any video, you can watch those videos. And definitely the communication that you wanted to have, the conversation. When I say conversation, there can be chat, like, share, those kind of conversation that we wanted to have, right? And video player itself have a lot of things. Like you can pause the player, you can go to the any of the place, right? There are many things basically can be do. Change the speed, change the, you can say the quality, the timestamp, many things, that crazy things that come. Now, apart from that, this is the video thing. There are more part to it. Example, if we talk about Netflix, you have something called subscription. Depending on subscription, there are other things like you can have profiling as well. Like there can be multiple user account in the same, right? When we go to YouTube, so there are subscriber, which is not as a paid thing, but you can subscribe to any of channel in order to get your feed and whatnot, right? So these things do differ depending on the platform. So what we are going to cover and what we are not going to cover in this video, we are going to be limited to the precise which is related to the streaming, which is one, the browsing side of the thing, right? The second basically will get into the video player kind of a thing, right? And one thing, maybe an interesting thing which I have to discuss, which is hero banner. Generally we have, like even you are on the Netflix, you are probably on the YouTube, so there are always some hero banners or the videos that we wanted to show on the top. So all of these we are going to touch upon. Let's quickly jump into these two platforms and see what we have. First thing first, when we go to Netflix, right? So Boss Baby, in case you have not watched, do watch. This is an interesting, you can say, movie. So you have a hero section, a hero video basically, which comes over here. And there then multiple categories, and based on that categories, you have multiple of these videos listed over here, right? So you hover, you do something, that is basically possible. Now, when we talk about similarly YouTube, so on YouTube, you have some home, you can say, banner videos and whatnot can be kept over here. So it can be, we don't allow the banner over here, but something, a video player can be kept over here. And then we have multiple sections. In those sections, we can have multiple videos, right? So this brings to a lot of complication and challenges, and we will talk about those. Like if you see when you hover, something actually starts, something happens. There's something crazy that happens basically in all of these platforms, right? So how basically this works, what we can do, let's try to dig deeper. First thing, we wanted to have a browse, what we call it, browse videos. That is one we want. Second, we want, maybe let's consider, we want a auto playing. So this is interesting. Hero banner. So when I say auto playing hero banner, in case of Netflix, you can see that this banner automatically plays when you actually come over here, right? So there is a video in the
क्या
ऑटो प्ले मतलब आते जैसे ही उस स्क्रीन पे आए तो अपने आप प्ले हो जाना चाहिए ना
अपने आप प्ले हो जाना चाहिए यार
background which is actually playing. So those kind of a thing that we wanted to have. Now, the other thing which we wanted to have is definitely a video player. When I say video player, you go into any of the videos. So example, if we go to any of the video, example, this is one of the reference where I have already talked about the Netflix front-end system design. It covers many things related to the Netflix, but we are going to cover beyond that what is already there. So in case you have not watched, I will recommend you to watch this. So now this is a video player, right? So video player have a lot of thing, right? You can actually play, pause related to thing. You can skip things. You can go to the next one, right? You can jump into any of the timestamp. You can see there is a thumbnail basically which is coming. There is control on the audio side of thing, right? And there is subtitle basically which can be enabled and whatnot, and lot of other control. When I say lot of other control, you can decide like what is the speed, what is the quality, you want the subtitle in what language you want the subtitle. Similarly, annotation and ambient mode. So we will talk about almost all of these. So we need a video player. And if we have to be precise, what kind of a video player, what are the things that we are going to look into? So there are things which are needed in terms of the video. There are, okay, let's cover one by one. In video, multiple things. You can do a play pause kind of thing. You can skip things. Similarly, in video, you can have seeking. So I will talk about these. So when I say seeking, you can jump into any of the timestamp directly by clicking anywhere in the video, right? Those kind of things basically are possible. So similarly, you can actually adjust your playback rate. So when I say playback rate, you want it to run at 1x, 2x, 1.5x. Those are called the playback rate basically that can be controlled. Similarly, when we talk about the audio, right? So you can adjust volume. Definitely you can change how much volume you wanted to have. Similarly, there is one interesting thing that happens, if obviously you might have noticed, which is changing languages. Like sometimes you wanted to keep it in English, then you wanted to change into your native. It can be Hindi, French, or whichever language basically you are preferring to. Now, we will be talking about the engineering side of all of these, how could we can actually get to these, you can say complications where audio can change, right? Say meaning the video remains the same. So all of these things are feasible and possible. And then probably we wanted to have something called subtitles. When we say subtitle, so it can be language specific. As we just saw, we can have like turn on and off kind of a thing as well, right? So turn on and off. All of these are basic fundamental requirement that we have, and we'll talk about like how these are possible, like even these are feasible, possible or not. Let's get into that. Apart from that, There are many other features, functionality that we talked about. We are not going to dive into. Yep. If you are interested to get into many of those things, I will recommend you a couple of places where, apart from these functional requirements, there are more functional requirements which I have discussed. So there are some resources. The one is this video, which is go into check the front end system design. This is Netflix front end system design. So in this case, you will be able to see that.
ये अपना है ना, वो करता रहता है सब चैनल
ये
का
अपना ही वीडियो चैनल बता रहा है, ये नहीं है कि बताए
we have covered multiple of different requirement, right? So you can actually go and think about, hey, there are supply demand side of the thing. I have actually discussed multiple things over here, right? So you can actually go and check the different functional requirement and whatnot in this particular video. That is one part. Now there is another which actually I had this with Gaurav saying, where there are two parts to it. One part is basically talking on the front end side of thing, where we have dive into the carousel side of thing, how homepage can be created, right? So diving into many things related to that. So those are functional requirement. Then many other things basically are covered in this video in terms of the performance and whatnot. Try to check this video. And if you are interested in backend side of thing, I will recommend to go to the second part of it, basically, which actually covers the core backend side of thing, like how these sections can be, how the data communication basically happens at multiple layer, how these communication basically happens. So you can always check the backend side of the thing as well. Coming back. So this is a feature that we are interested, and I will love to dive into each one of them. Now, if we talk about non-functional requirement, like what matters to us, because we are talking about.
क्या हुआ? हाँ, कल जाना है। दिखा ना? सती सर आप सब पता? अरे वो क्या बोलते हैं कि वो कम दे रहा है ना, बस 5 मिनट में आ रहा हूँ, ठीक है? अरे तो स्टार्ट करो मेरे पापा आ गए थे actually.
Okay.
About video platform. You might have seen the YouTube like 10 years back and YouTube which is today, right? It has grown in terms of the performance like anything. You are in a bad network, good network, you are using in mobile, you are using in desktop, you are using in, you can say big 4K TV and whatnot. You might have seen the kind of a video quality that you get and the kind of experience that you get is the next level. How to get those things, maybe that is something which is very important. So I will be talking about two kind of a performance. One is the video performance, how we can achieve the best video performance, where we'll talk about multiple things. When we talk about video performance, one is how do we support multiple resolution. So multiple resolution, like there are different resolution, like we need to support like mobile device, 4K device and whatnot. Second is the multiple video quality. So depending on which kind of network you are, where you are, you might have seen one interesting thing. You are traveling. Now, when you travel, the internet speed does.
फंक्शनल रिक्वायरमेंट इज लाइक फंक्शनल रिक्वायरमेंट वो चीजें होती हैं कि मतलब जिनके बिना तो चलेगा ही नहीं भाई ये अगर नहीं होंगे तो हम देखेंगे क्या नॉन फंक्शनल रिक्वायरमेंट बस ये सब चीज तो हमें हो गई अब हमारा आता है ऑप्टिमाइजेशन पार्ट अब जो बिहाइंड द सीन चीजें हैं कि मतलब यूजर को चीजें दिख गई हैं लेकिन अब यूजर को फास्ट दिखनी चाहिए यूजर को ये वाली चीज पहले दिख जानी चाहिए बाद में
परफॉर्मेंस टाइप ना एक्स्ट्रा परफॉर्मेंस टाइप एक्स्ट्रा एंड परफॉर्मेंस
हाँ हाँ
लेकिन नॉन
मतलब ये फंक्शनल में रिक्वायरमेंट का है ना मिनिमम बियरेबल मतलब इनके बिना तो काम ही नहीं चल सकता बट अगर ये नहीं भी होंगे मतलब अगर फॉर एग्जांपल अगर हम कोई अमेज़न की वेबसाइट पे नेविगेट किया तो अमेज़न की वेबसाइट अगर धीरे लोड हो रही है तो कुछ ना कोई ना इंसान वेट कर सकता है उसको लोड होने के लिए वेट कर रहा है और आइटम लिस्ट हो रहे हैं कि करके तो ये दिस इज काइंड ऑफ नॉन फंक्शनल लेकिन अब आइटम ही नहीं आ रहे हैं वो लोड ही नहीं हो रही है वेबसाइट आइटम दिख ही नहीं रहा है तो वो फंक्शनल रिक्वायरमेंट है तो वो चीज है
not remain the same, it fluctuate, but at the same time your quality may be compromised in the video but it does not provide you a glitch, right? So that's how certain things are taken care of and how those things are taken care. We will also try to dive into those things, right? So these are multiple video quality support depending on like either you choose the quality where you can say that hey I wanted to 144 or maybe whatever it is like I want 1024 pixel quality. So those kind of things you also can control, but again they are something which is called as an adaptive thing. So we'll talk about those things. Then other thing is fast video startup. So when I say fast video startup, it meant how soon basically when I click on any of the video it can start. Like our waiting time in order to get started any video should be bare minimum, like bare minimum. How can we achieve that, right? All of these we are going to talk about. Then we'll get into page performance also. When I say page performance, obviously in order to make a video player work, to make it fast, first you have to make the page fast. Like how can you render your page as soon as possible fast, and then the video inside that can be fast, right? So because the primary thing if you go into YouTube as well, right? So when you open any of the, so what matters is this player for you, right? And then you have secondary thing, hey, can I get all the other side of the things, comment and whatnot. So those things can be taken care in a better way. How we can do it, how we can achieve it, we will talk about those things as well. Now there are a couple of things in terms of page performance. One thing I will say fast initial page load kind of a thing, and second thing I will consider, so how this fast can be done, I will touch upon multiple things including SSR is something that we will be talking about, like different strategies, rendering strategies, where I have already created a detailed video about the different rendering strategies, but I will touch upon why in this particular case why Netflix does and what part actually Netflix does in terms of the SSR, CSR and the reasoning behind that, right? So different platforms uses the different techniques for different piece of the application. Like YouTube does something different, Netflix does something different, why and all sort of things we will discuss. Now then comes definitely the device support, where the same video can be can work on the mobile, it can work on the desktop, it can work on the maybe Android TV and whatnot. Now you may be thinking about just responsiveness, right? I understand responsiveness in terms of hey it's like an image, make it small or make it big. No, that's not the only case when we say about the device support. Reason being we have to stream, right? So when we say stream the video, then the protocol which is used in order to stream in your laptop maybe or computer or the mobile devices and the Android devices, depending on either it is Android or the iOS, there are different protocols which is basically used, right? So hence that matters basically what kind of a device we wanted to support. It is not a single silver bullet basically which can use and say that hey, just a UI thing you have to do and make it responsive. No boss, there are many things that you have to take care of. Okay, now with that you have something called auth. when I say auth, we have to understand there are many things in Netflix. Example, if you're not logged in, probably you won't be able to chip in into any of the video and you won't be able to see that, right? So what it meant by your detail page will only open when you are actually a subscriber and whatnot. On the other side, in YouTube, you might have seen a lot of time where many of these videos are actually visible. Like you can go and get into any of these videos very easily without being a logged in user. But again, there are some videos which need some permissions. You need to be logged in and whatnot. Maybe there are different kinds, sensitive information, adult videos and whatnot, which need authentication, like, hey, who you are before I render those videos. So those things depends. In like YouTube, it's a selective thing. In case of Netflix, everything is actually behind a auth. So that auth is something that has to be taken care basically in such cases. And definitely the SEO, because if you talk about YouTube, YouTube works on SEO mostly, right? So what you do, you either search on the YouTube or you search on basically Google and you end up into a video on the YouTube. So if your search engine optimization is not good, then that will go for a toss. So what we are going to cover and what we are not going to cover. So everything is definitely not possible over here to cover. So we will cover the video performance. Definitely we will talk about the page performance. We will talk about the device support kind of thing as well. We'll skip the auth and the SEO part. The SEO is something which I have already covered in one of the previous HLD in lot more detail. Auth, I will see, because this video itself contains a lot of core information about the video streaming. Auth is something which we'll cover in a separate video altogether in one of the HLD. Now, in terms of functional requirement, we'll try to cover this and this for sure. Audio player, let me get into this also. Let's talk a bit about this as well. Okay, so now before we jump into the interesting part, let's get into few of the fundamental terminologies that we are going to use across this video, right? We have to understand, like, we are talking about video streaming platform. So there are a lot of naming conventions that are used, that is background that is needed, that you should know. So let me say video streaming terminologies. So this is something which I have not covered in any of the videos that I'm talking about. This is something is important. So please have an eye. So because you will see people often talking about these things, and if you don't understand, then that becomes a problem, right? The first thing first, we call it, so I will just note down some of them and then I will try to showcase you from the real practical thing, right? So we have something called streaming. We have something called buffering. There are terminologies which are called bitrate, right? There are terminologies which are called, we call it frame rate, right? So there are terminologies which are called supporting different resolution. You may be aware of, you might have heard about these terminology very frequently, maybe in YouTube at least, when we do it. So there is something called codec. There is something called bandwidth related thing. There is something called what we call it, poster related stuff. We have what we call caption. So maybe I will call it closed caption. So there are two kind of a caption basically. We have closed and embed, I can call it. Closed and open, maybe we call it embed. So both of them basically we can talk about. We talked about poster, we talk about major thing. Okay, there are a couple of more things which I wanted to talk about. One is basically playback, maybe I will say controls. The other thing I wanted to talk about is seeking. Then we have scrubbing. You will get entire spa in this video, don't worry about that. Then we have a couple of more interesting thing, which is we have what we call it. We have one very important file which is called manifest file, right? So this is manifest file that we have. Then let me scroll a bit. We have manifest file. In the manifest file, then we have subtitle file, which is important, that we can actually talk about. I think these are some core things that I wanted to touch upon, that you should understand these terminologies at least, right? So these are some terminologies. Let's try to understand these terminologies. What are these and like how these basically works. Okay, so let's go one by one. So when we talk about streaming, so guys, there are two ways. One, you have a video. It can be in multiple format. We will be talking about those format as well. Now, what you get, one, like your image, your PDF file, how these things basically render. So you get the entire image, or the, you can say you get an entire image, you get the PDF, and finally you have it, you actually render it and consume it. In case of video, similar thing basically can happen, which is you have some MP4 video, you get the entire video downloaded and then you start playing it. Now the problem is the videos are sometimes very large, not sometimes nowadays, like if you talk about any of the Netflix videos, multiple GBs, right? So you can't wait for entire multiple GBs to be downloaded. We are not using the torrent, right? So we don't want all of them to be downloaded and then we start consuming. There is no point. So we wanted to stream. So when we say stream, so we wanted to convert into small chunk, and that chunk can be downloaded on the real time and can be consumed on the real time, right? So even if we have a small chunk, a small packet, that chunk itself is actually consumable, right? That's a stream that we got. Now, what is this buffer? Buffer, definitely you have seen that buffering is saying that I need something in future, I will load that in advance so that when it is needed, I already have that particular chunk, the buffered data. So how that is going to help? That is going to help
Great
us
part, na?
saying that, hey, I
हाँ
can keep on
ये this one
हम्म,
playing and showcasing you the video without any delays, pauses, or glitches, basically, right? So you notice this part, the gray part, basically. This gray part basically shows you this is a buffered data that you already have. Like you are already playing, you are streaming it, you are getting the data in chunks, but I'm buffering where the future chunks which I need, I can get in advance, right? That is something which is important to understand. Now, there is something called bitrate. What this bitrate basically says that it's an amount of data that can be transferred per second in a video, basically, right? So what does it mean? So if you are on a good internet speed, so the amount of data that can be downloaded in that particular maybe 1 second will be more. When we say you can download more data, it means you can download higher quality data. On top of it, it also says that because you can download more data, you can also download the data in a high resolution also, right? So take an example. In this case, I'm using 2G. So my bitrate will be lesser. And when I'm using a higher internet connectivity, maybe I need a better bitrate, right? So more the bitrate, the more the better quality you will be basically able to serve it. So that is how you can try to simplify. You can download the larger chunk in basically every second, right? And larger the chunk, the better the quality you can download depending on your configuration. Now, what is this frame rate? Frame rate also you have to understand. So generally, you may be knowing, like if we talk about even how the web page render and what is the FPS, which is frame per second kind of a thing, like how many frames it can render per second, which is very important. Like when we say in case of browser, it's a 16 FPS, which means 16 frames can be rendered within 1 second. The more the frame can be rendered, the more better things that you can see. The lesser the frame, the more the freezing kind of experience you will see, right? Which you will see that the videos are stuck kind of thing, right? It takes time. So frames are kind of lost. So now what we generally prefer, we prefer the higher frame rates, right? Where nowadays, like if we common frame rates are like 24 FPS or 30 FPS or 60 FPS, which is generally used for television and online videos kind of a thing, right? So those kind of so more frames you can actually render if you have more data, right? If you have more, you can say frames which are actually downloaded, the more frames can be rendered. If you don't have, then obviously you see your frames get stuck, your video got stuck, and it shows slowly, the experience is not that smooth, right? That happens because you may not be rendering in the better frame rate. So that is also important. Now resolution, you understand. So when I say resolution in any of the video, you can actually go and define your resolution. Like what is the quality that you wanted to go for, either 144, 240, 360, 480. Like similarly, SD is 1080 and there is 4K for the TVs and whatnot, right? So those kind of a thing, those kind of a resolution you can always go for. Again, quality, obviously. So those are the different qualities in the resolution. And resolution, we talk about X cross Y, which is width cross height kind of a resolution, right?
तो रिजोल्यूशन काइंड ऑफ ऐसा रहता होगा कि वीडियोस जो है वो डिफरेंट हाँ
भाई वीडियो क्वालिटी 480p 240p 360p
नहीं नहीं तो वो तो मैं समझ गई लेकिन आई मीन जब बैक एंड पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से इतने इतने क्वालिटी पे सारे वीडियोस अलग अलग रिसोर्सेज होते होंगे क्या मतलब अलग अलग वीडियो फाइल
हाँ ये
बैकएंड में
पॉइंट से पता नहीं मुझे लग रहा है बैकएंड पॉइंट से वही हो गया कि बीट रेट आपका कैसा है मतलब कितना आप क्वालिटी पे डाउनलोड हो रहा है नहीं होता है कि उसने बिट रेट बोला कि 3G है 2G है तो उस हिसाब से वीडियो क्वालिटी वीडियो फ्रेम्स डाउनलोड होते हैं तो उस हिसाब से हो सकता है रेजोल्यूशन भी चेंज होते हैं
Now, we talk about the codecs. Codecs is something which is important. We have to understand. Whenever these videos, the chunks that we actually load from server and we get from the server, right? Those are encoded and decoded. So all those audio video files that we have are actually encoded and decoded. And these are decoded with different, you can say, algorithms. Let me put down some algorithm which can help you out. Maybe I can put down a few things over here, which is maybe important for you. 24 FPS, 30 and 60 FPS. So these are some common thing. Resolution you already know. So few things which are actually like it is difficult to remember. So H264, I think that's what it is. Okay, this is one. The second is similar kind of thing, which is H265. So those are basically some of the known you can say encoding and decoding algorithms, right? HECV, I think that's what we have. And there are similarly we have something called VP9 kind of a thing, and we have AV1. So these are different encoding decoding algorithms that we have basically, which is used whenever the videos are basically sub. So there are reasons, right? So different browsers, different platform, different devices support the different codec, which is the encoding and decoding algorithm. And hence, the sending the data in the right format is also important, which helps you to determine the performance also. So whenever you host the videos into different, you can say platform, you also see what kind of encoding and decoding is actually supported in those stream or the provider. Where if you are targeting diverse kind of devices, then having a support of different encoding and decoding algorithms with this codec is also very important. So again, so these are some terminologies which is important when you wanted to get into the specialization. You don't have to remember all of those things. You should know these exist. And depending on when you get an opportunity to work on these video streaming platform, you have at least some background like how to work on what are the important things that you should think about. Perfect. Bandwidth is simple. You may be knowing you have an internet speed of 10 Mbps, 20 or 30 or 100 Mbps, maybe 200 Mbps. So what it basically talks about, a simple thing, hey, how much data can be downloaded, how many MB or GB data can be downloaded per second kind of a thing, right? That's a bandwidth that we have. Posters are very important. A quick check. Basically, the one which you see are the thumbnails or the poster that we call. When you hover on this, the poster goes when the actual videos basically plays, right? So this is the poster. If you hover on this, the videos actually start playing. So that is a kind of a poster we have. Open and closed caption, we have to understand. There is one way where you can actually see this. So this is a caption that is coming. You can control it. These captions are something which can be controlled. There are some captions which can't be controlled. Okay, so what I meant by the one which is actually embedded in the video itself, right? So that is something like, see this names, right? These are something which is actually embedded in the video. So there are use cases where we sometimes wanted to embed thing in the video itself. So one is the closed one and second is the open caption. The playback controls, which are very important. When I say playback control, all of these control, play, pause, moving to the next, doing mute, unmute kind of a thing, changing the volume, basically changing the autoplay kind of a configuration, the video quality, all of these basically comes in the play control that we have. Seeking is something which is very important. Seeking, let's understand this terminology. Seeking is like I can click on any part of the video and video actually starts from there. So that is called seeking. What is the scrubbing? Scrubbing is basically when you drag it, right? What you're doing, you're actually doing a scrubbing, right? So that's a scrubbing, basically that is a terminology which is used. So the other thing basically which is manifest file, this is very important, guys. You have to understand the importance and the value of this manifest. So manifest is a file which actually tells you all the necessary information, all the metadata related to the chunk, right? Which is actually loaded. When I say all the metadata related to the chunk which is loaded, we have to understand what is this chunk. This chunk is, we know that video get streamed. It means we know that the video get downloaded into chunks, into the packets, right? So those packets are independent. And when you say these packets are independent, it should have certain information. Like what kind of information? What is the URL of the segment in order to access it, right? What is the time frame for this particular segment? Like what is the starting and the ending time for which this segment basically came? Then it should also talk about the quality of basically the video basically it is being served, because different quality can be served, different resolution of this chunk can be, as we talked about. Let's try to understand. So now you are actually in a train. You are traveling from maybe Bangalore to your hometown. Maybe it can be UP, Rajasthan, Patna, wherever it is, right? Now when your train is actually moving, you are actually going through the different internet speed. Now because you started from the Bangalore station, you were having a good internet speed. You got a segment. You can say that you get a chunk which was at a high quality. So your manifest file will say, I start from 0 second to maybe 10 second or 30 second chunk that you got. It has the URL, it has all the detail about the quality. Now, when the train started at that time, maybe you are not having a good internet connectivity. The next request which goes from the client, it will say that, hey, I don't have the good internet connectivity at this moment. You send me the data with a lower, you can say, resolution and whatnot, right? Quality. So the next segment that you will get, automatically that segment will be for certain duration, may not be a bigger chunk. It can be dynamic, small chunks as well. And on top of it, the quality that you will get in that particular chunk is also something which is going to be less. Who determines all of those things is something which is driven from the manifest file. So this is something which is very, very powerful. And I will show you some glimpses of how this manifest file probably look like. Subtitle file. So there are multiple subtitle files as well, guys. When I say, you might have heard about those things when we say SRT. So SRTs are basically your transcript with the timestamp, right? So anything that you see, hey, I'm speaking right now, so there will be transcript that will be generated. And for each and every statement that I'm talking about, there will be some timestamp attached to that, right? That is one. The second basically is called we call it TTML. So that is called time text markup language. The same thing, instead of getting into the normal string format, what you got basically in the XML format. That is something which is again. So there is another kind of thing which is SSC, which is closed caption kind of a title that you get. And there is another which is popular, which is web VTT kind of a thing. So this is something you might have seen. Okay. So there are multiple ways to use the video. I will talk about that in future. One way is you can inject a video HTML tag. In that video HTML tag, if you wanted to provide the caption, So there is a way to provide that caption by providing the SRT of type WebVT. So there is you can actually provide, hey, this is the subtitle that I wanted to provide, and you can give the file and automatically it will follow and showcase those subtitle in that particular video player, which is built on the HTML tag. I will show you those things. Don't worry. These are some terminologies I will recommend you should know. And obviously the close and embed thing, basically we talked about. Awesome. Now, I hope you are well versed with the terminologies that I just wanted to help you to remember and understand. Let's try to jump into the architecture. So in this video, I'm going to only touch upon the architecture from the front end side of the thing. In the other videos, I have touched upon the back end side of the architecture as well. Why I'm not touching the backend in this particular specific video? The reason being, I have already covered this in very detail. This is already being in a discussion, like Gaurav Sen and me discussed the backend architecture, how basically data comes, how you split, and what basically can be done, what database, what server basically should be responsible for different thing, right? So you can watch this video for the backend, understanding the backend side of the thing in the much more detail. I think that will be really helpful for you guys, right? So now let's try to focus primarily on the front end side of the thing. Now, so let me say that this is how things are going to look like. Now, what we have, so we have different screen, which is going to interact in a different fashion. So I'm going to say we have different views, we have different controllers, we will have some services, which I generally create. We will have some internal databases and whatnot in order to interact and do some activities, right? And obviously there will be a thin layer, which I will just create in order to highlight. There are one thing which is 100% needed over here, which is CDN in this particular case, right? So let me talk about. So this is the client and the server. These are some views which are important. These are some controllers which are going to help you to take control and build something. These are some services. These are some storage which is needed. And on the backend, one thing which is 100% needed is a CDN, and there are multiple web servers which are needed. But I will be talking about today a bit into the CDN side of the thing. Okay. Now, if we talk about two things, one was our homepage. This is one. You have hero video player, you have video list basically over here. That is one part of it, right? The second is when you click on any one of them, say suppose I say, hey, play this, right? So play this. So this is something which is a video player which got opened, right? So there are two parts to it. One is actually the home page, right? And second is basically the video player page. So these are two things. So you can think about there are multiple pages with multiple things. I'm going to break down at a component level probably, right? So that you can think in a far better way over here. So I will try to break things at a critical.
क्या हुआ? हेलो.
उप्स, म्यूट पे थी, सॉरी. मैं बोल रही हूँ इनिशियली इसने एमवीसी आर्किटेक्चर पे डिवाइड कर दिया. जनरली एमवीसी आर्किटेक्चर तो एंगुलर में फॉलो करते हैं ना.
मुझे आइडिया नहीं है.
नहीं, लेकिन रिएक्ट में तो हम कंपोनेंट लेवल पे डील करते हैं सब चीजों को.
अब ये कर रहा है, आई गेस इसके लिए होगा बस. आई मीन ये फॉलो करते होंगे.
Level which we can discuss. So what we have, one is we have hero player, hero section probably, or hero player, whatever you wanted to call it out. So let's get this out. Okay, maybe make it, this is hero section. Similarly, we have two more important things. One is the video player itself. How these video players are built, what can be done in the implementation detail, we will talk about that. And then you have video list kind of a thing, right? Where you have different categories and different things are basically listed. So one independent implementation for that, one independent for the hero section, and one independent for the individual videos. You click on that, you get into that. So these are certain things that we need. Now, what we need in terms of the controller, one controller which is definitely needed is your video controller, which helps you to manage your videos for sure. Let me borrow like this. So you have a video player controller, and second controller, which is 100% needed over here. You can have multiple, but this is video, I will say feed or recommendation. So video recommendation kind of a thing. So I will write it rec, video recommendation, right? So you have a video recommendation which helps you to pull the data, and when you pull the data, it helps you to do multiple interesting things. I will talk about some of the core things that we should understand. Then we have multiple services. One service which is 100%.
एक सेकेंड, ये वीडियो प्लेयर कंट्रोलर में कैसे आया?
अरे वीडियो प्लेयर कंट्रोलर जब का वीडियो स्टार्ट होता है तो उस टाइम जो भी सारे कंट्रोलर्स रहते हैं उससे जो भी इसने बताया यहाँ पे सीकिंग, स्क्रबिंग, क्लोज्ड कैप्शन, रेजोल्यूशन, सारे चीज से रिलेटेड वो कंट्रोलर
Player controller, and second controller which is 100% needed over here. You can have multiple, but this is video, I will say feed or recommendation. So video recommendation kind of a thing. So I will write it rec, video recommendation, right? So you have a video recommendation which helps you to pull the data, and when you pull the data, it helps you to do multiple interesting things. I will talk about some of the core things that we should understand. Then we have multiple services. One service which is 100% needed over here. There are similarly two services which are independent service. One is going to help you with the video player, and second is going to help you the video, you can say recommendation kind of a thing, right? And then we have, so say consider example, then we have a CDN. So one which we are very much interested to, which is video player service, VP, and second is video recommendation, which is VC. So these are two services which we are very much interested, and this one is going to talk to CDN and one is going to talk to some server over here, right? So let me call it server. So there is any web server which is actually helping you to interact in this particular fashion. So there are video recommendation. This is video player kind of a thing that happens. Now let's
वीडियो रिकमेंड, पता नहीं VC क्यों लिखा है इसने, बट वीडियो रिकमेंडेशन को उसने VC लिख दिया. उसने वो भी किया है, मतलब एक तरीके से कंट्रोलर जो है वो सर्विस के थ्रू ही इंटरेक्ट करेगा डेटाबेस को, काइंड ऑफ.
Want guys, what we wanted to store and where we wanted to store, we have to think twice. Like I will try to break the problem and try to understand this entire architecture, how this is going to work. So when we are in a hero section, right? In hero section, what we want some video to be available and it should play. And this video can be different for different people, which is okay. Maybe what you like, I can recommend you the hero section video and you can actually play how to implement. In the implementation we will talk about, but this is something which is needed. Now what we want guys, if I get into any of the videos, say suppose I go to this video and I come back. Did you see that video actually plays at a like flash of like at just same time you see all the recommendation and everything was almost there. How this can happen? So all the things that we are actually loading should go into some cache. So there are multiple kind of a cache probably that we can use. If I talk about Netflix, it uses Graph. So it uses GraphQL a lot. So it uses the GraphQL client over here. So GraphQL cache, you can say GraphQL client cache. It can be Apollo cache. It can be any such cache, right? So which is something which is needed. Second thing, you have to understand one more important thing, guys. What is that? Which is this video is what? Is a some file which is actually visible and loaded over here. Let's try to see this file once. If we can pull down something. So what it uses and how it uses. So is a logo, not interested. So let's see if we can pull down. It's a bit tricky because it's not directly available. So what we have, not header. This is main section. Netflix font. Let me search for video. Okay. We don't have video player. Okay, let me try to pull in this fashion if we can. So we have this section, we have our trailer section, we have our hero section. This is the image hero section for this, which is okay. And this actually came as a hero image section. Let's try to see. I remember seeing it somewhere.
क्या?
I mean वो जो ऑटो प्ले हो रहा है वो लेयर उसके ऊपर है जो ट्रेंडिंग नाउ है, मतलब उसके नीचे है, ट्रेंडिंग नाउ ऊपर है, मतलब बहुत अच्छे से लेयर बना हुआ है इसका.
ओके.
Not visible at this time. Let's see. Maybe at the time it replaces video. Okay. So there's a video player attached to it. Let me show you. Open a new tab.
Blob.
You won't be able to see this, but this is something interesting, guys. What it does, it has a blob basically which is created over here. That's a blob. And if we try to check the property of this blob over here, what is
by the way, जो भी storage होता है ना, blob storage, image file and video, SVGs शायद नहीं, मतलब image जितने भी तरीके की होती है, PNG extensions के, अलग अलग वो सब ब्लॉब स्टोरेज में स्टोर करता है.
Let me see if you will be able to get that blob information. Apparently not. Apparently not. We can't see the blob. Ideally, these blobs can be seen over here also. What is this blobs? Understand. Initially, when it made the request, it actually loaded the data of this video. The data is loaded in a binary format, right? Now you can't actually showcase the binary and put into the video player and make it work. Like video player doesn't support the binary. You got the data, binary data. What do? Video player says that, hey, I don't need binary. You give me the actual MP4 or some format, video format, in order to make that work. Now that's a tricky thing. How do you actually, don't want it to send the MP4 because of the size and whatnot. You can send the binary faster as compared to the MP4 video and whatnot, because it's small video, because small few seconds overall video that you wanted to show. What it does something interesting, which is you get the binary, you create into the blob, right? So there are ways. You just check. You can create the blob for image also. So you have a binary image, you can have binary videos, you can have binary any data that you get from the server, you convert into the blob so that you can attach that into the video link. So video, then what you place in a SRC is something that is a blob which is generated on the client. Try to note, this blob is something which won't be available to anyone else. This won't be available to anyone else. What does it mean? Try to understand. This blob is something which is generated in cache on your browser. And if you try to share with anyone else, this won't be available in other browser, right? This is available only temporary. Now, there is multiple interesting things. When I said you have to also take care of, one is the GraphQL cache, which is your data, your metadata. How many videos are there, the image URL, blah, 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 the text that you wanted to give the category, the button name and whatnot. But what about the videos, the chunk that you loaded, right? How you can store and cache that so that next time a person is actually visiting the same page, you do not actually load it from the server. Can we do something interesting, right? These are something. So what we generally do, one way to actually store that is actually convert into the blob and store it. Like, but again, blob, any of the memory comes with constraint. I will be talking about those constraints in going ahead. What are those constraints? One of the constraints is, boss, the memory on the browsers are limited. You can't just randomly come and say that, hey, just keep on pulling all the data and convert into the blob and put in the cache. That is not going to work. What we do as an interesting part over here, we keep on getting the data. What are the primary data that we wanted to keep? We keep into the blob URL. Once our job is done, we know that, hey, something is old, we wanted to get rid of this. We can actually go and clear our blob spaces as well. So that is feasible. If you wanted to get into the implementation, you can Google it out. Straightforward. You can create a blob, you can remove a blob, which is you are putting something in your memory and creating a dynamic URL for your browser. And similarly, you can remove things from the memory if that is no longer needed. That is one of the interesting way to put things in the storage, which are related to any binary data. It can be videos, images, it can be any damn thing, like PDF and all sort of things are also supported, right? That is kinda interesting thing. Now, if you understood about the storage, now we have to understand a couple of things. When we say video player, in terms of video player, those streaming and your other things which are like buffering, where you actually try to get the chunk, and those chunks basically do support some interesting scenarios, which is depending on the bandwidth. I will be talking about what quality of data you can send me and all sort of things. Those things are actually taken care by your player via, or you can say the controller. And this controller, basically video player controller, will take care of understanding the bandwidth and whatnot, and it will make the request to the CDN with some configuration, and that CDN will return back you the manifest and all sort of thing along with the data. Let's see if we can pull down something similar and make some advantage of that. It says that unable to request. Okay, let's see if we can see some of those chunks getting streamed over here. That will be awesome. So let me do minus a bit. Okay, so we'll see. So these are certain chunks what you get. Try to see. You get some binary data, right, guys? What we are getting, try to see. So every request which is made. So if we go into the header, so in header, there are many things which are being sent. Let me try to see if I can pull some relevant data. So some relevant data, if you see the range, you tell me the range for which you need the data. And there are other kind of like configuration which are being passed, which obviously is difficult for us to dig deeper in terms of the quality and all sort of things which are passed. But one thing which you can definitely see is the range. For this range, give me the chunk, the streaming data, right? For all of them, you see that there's a different chunk basically which is expected. And this also takes down some information about the quality, some information about the resolution. All of these things are basically also passed as a part of these things. Now, where it goes into the CDN, and CDN basically helps you to serve this information. And what you get the binary information. This binary information is actually converted into the blob and being rendered in this particular video player, right? So sometimes in a blob format and sometimes in other interesting format. Did you notice this blobs getting generated, right? So these are some blobs that got generated. If you notice, these were not actually sent from the server. These are blobs which are created on the client. And why these are created? Maybe to show you these thumbnails that you see. You see the thumbnails which are coming over here. Those thumbnails are actually coming from these blobs. Now, YouTube does something different for these. I will be talking about. Don't worry about that. So YouTube does something different in an interesting fashion in order to show you these blobs basically. What are those? How are those? We'll talk about. So at a high level, these are some primary things that you should understand from the architecture of point of view. Hey, these are certain things that we should have in our diagram. And obviously, we have to deal with a different kind of a storage for different kind of a thing. For metadata, this is enough. For your actual video kind of a thing or images kind of a thing, you have to play with the blob storage as well. And especially taking care of the memory sizes, which again, we will be covering eventually. Awesome. Now let me, before we dig deeper, certain things I wanted to help you to understand. Let's go into our Netflix. Netflix, you might have handled one way of pagination. When I say one way of pagination, you scroll. Finally, you are getting more data. That is what we do. This is your vertical scroll. In case of Netflix, there is something which is very interesting, which is you have vertical and horizontal scroll both. So you notice, you click on this, you get another set of data. You click on this, you get another set of data. So try to notice when I click, so there may be for a few milliseconds, you will be able to see that gray screen. Try to notice. Did you notice the gray screen for the first time? Did you notice the gray screen for the first time? Did you notice the gray screen? Which means, hey boss, now I'm interested in getting the more videos in this particular category as well. So you get two-way pagination in case of Netflix, and especially if you go to this also, right? So what you get? So this and this. In case of YouTube, it's kind of a bit straightforward. I will tell you why. YouTube basically have limited set of data that you can actually show in the horizontal wing. I think that's a 10 cap for our desktop devices, right? But Netflix is like crazy. Netflix, you can keep on pulling the data and there's a huge set of data. You see, if you try to notice, there's a pagination on the top that happens. So this is a pagination, which is a horizontal pagination, which is actually supported in case of the Netflix. So that is also feasible and that is kinda interesting as well, right? So how do we achieve it? And like maybe I will in our non-functional requirement, I will maybe list down this non-functional, which is very important as a matter of fact, which is two-way pagination, which is
कंटिन्यू करना है यहाँ से
क्या हुआ?
मुझे कंटिन्यू करना है ये काइंड ऑफ नए वे में पूरा आर्किटेक्चर बता रही हूँ
हाँ, लेकिन अब फिर परसों ही कंटिन्यू कर पाएंगे. कल मैं लीव कर रहा हूँ, ठीक है?
अच्छा चलिए इतने मैं तो लीड कोड करूंगी जहां तक है
अरे ये बताओ, ये मुझे नहीं पाएगा क्या ये इसका लिंक? अपने फ्रेंड से पूछना, क्योंकि बहुत कुछ है यार
कुछ तो
इसमें. पोलिंग वोलिंग वगैरह भी पढ़ना पड़ेगा मेरे को.
यार वैसे वो बहुत लिमिटेड लोगों को ही देते हैं तो पॉसिबल है नहीं वैसे
पूछ लेना. I mean,
ठीक है पूछ लूंगी तो इसके टेलीग्राम ग्रुप पे भी मिल जाते हैं
क्या कहाँ पे?
देखना मैंने इनिशियली टेलीग्राम ग्रुप से ही लिए थे भेजती हूँ अगर मुझे मिलता है तो
ठीक ठीक.
इनिशियली मैंने उसी से पढ़ा था फिर मुझे इंटरेस्ट आने लगा ना तब मैं बहुत सारे दोस्तों से बात करने लगी कि यार ये अच्छा लगा तो फिर मेरे फ्रेंड ने दिया ऐसा हुआ था
I see. हाँ, तब कल वही करना. क्या बोलते हैं, कल क्या करोगे? मतलब कोई नया टॉपिक मत स्टार्ट करो. मैथ स्टार्ट कर सकती हो. मैथ में भी तो बहुत क्वेश्चन, मैथ में भी क्वेश्चन है यार अच्छे अच्छे. पावर ऑफ अ नंबर है और भी क्वेश्चन है.
ठीक है
अब लेट भी हो गया है ना, 11:30.
यस लेट हो गया यप बहुत लंबा चला जाएगा अदरवाइज
चलो फिर इतना
ठीक है
देख लिया, कम से कम इतना दिमाग के अंदर रहे पहले.